Hi there, I'm Georgie Ainslie, and every week I talk to someone who is a performance person. They could be an athlete from the world of entertainment, business, or politics. They could even be an astronaut. The key link is, of course, that they all know how to perform at the top level, and they can teach us all a thing or two about how to do that in our own lives at whatever it is that we do. Performance People is available wherever you get your podcasts, or of course you can watch us on YouTube, where you can also subscribe, and please do. Richard Joseph is CEO of Joseph, a product design company hell-bent on solving everyday household problems. Richard and his twin Anthony designed their first product together in 2003, a glass chopping board. From there, they've gone on to build a company that made a pre-tax profit of £20 million last year. Quite a journey for the brothers from Birmingham who used to sleep in the car outside trade shows.
It's the bit we love. But it's also, we know that if we get that right, and it's not easy, but if we get it right, the business will flourish on the back of it. So I still carve out lots of time for that, as well as trying to then manage the other parts of the business.
I mean, is that a little bit like how you feel about some of your products? Or any of them? Have you been on that sort of like emotionally quite connected journey with these products?
You know, sometimes you get it wrong. And like I said, failure is part of the journey, and we do fail, but we just try and learn. We fail fast, we move on, and we learn from it.
So Rich, this will appeal to our generation of listeners for sure. If you've got a problem, who do you call? Some people go to Ghostbusters, I go to you. I go to Richard Joseph for all problems relating to startups. So whether that be supply chain, product design, whatever it is, my first phone call has now become the phone call that I place to you. When you guys started this company 20 odd years ago, you and your brother, twins as well, hence Joseph. Did you ever foresee it becoming what it is now? Was that the game plan? How did you head into this? What were your ambitions 20 odd years ago?
So I'd say we never thought it would obviously be where it is today. You start off we were two product designers. We loved product design, even as children, as kids, we were in the garage at home creating crazy inventions together, making stuff that went nowhere, but we loved, just creating stuff. So we started out the same way, really. I think we started off just designing products that we thought were cool and sort of solved a problem. And we, wanted to sort of design the next product. So we thought we needed to sell what we were doing in order to create a bit of money, then to put into the second product and the third product. And it just sort of went from there. So we went on that journey, and here we are sort of 20 years later, and still here, which is great.
I mean, you're synonymous with many things, but the chopping board is one of them. We'll get to that in a minute. But when you first started mulling over, the two of you, what that first product would look like, obviously you're problem solvers. I mean, you come from the school of Dyson as well, so You've got that experience behind you. And very much it's a problem solution business and all about functionality. I want to know what the first product was that you two came up with that didn't make it to the design floor. Was there something in the first instance that you both mulled over that you thought, I think this has potential, and maybe it did or didn't get there?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we first started out, we actually launched 4 products, 3 of which were a disaster, didn't go anywhere, and one made it, and that was the one that then took us forward and as well, it took us on the journey we've been on. There's been many, many products over the years that sort of, I guess, failed, and we learned a huge amount by it, but in the early days, it was very much like we designed a range of products. So if I take it back, we grew up in Birmingham, and our father and my grandfather set up a manufacturing business in Birmingham. So we came from sort of engineering, manufacturing background. Dad ran a company that made industrial glass components. And so when and they were things like cooker hobs and car wing mirrors and, going into the automotive trade in Birmingham and all, the surrounding cities. And when we started out, we were like, look, we'd love to do some consumer goods. We thought it'd be really cool to do something that we would buy, we'd like to buy ourselves. But in order to get started, we'd make them in the factory, much to this sort of disgust of all these guys using these Carl Weimerers, and they're like, why have we got to produce a glass chopping board for these guys? But anyway, so we started off with 4 products. And they were, like I said, they were just things that we thought we'd like. And I mean, we did a glass chopping board, which is a brilliant product because it's super hygienic. So bacteria doesn't stick to it. So, you can use it to chop, prepare, serve food on, etc. So great product. We then did a glass wall clock, which was basically a glass chopping board with a hole in it and a clock mechanism. That did okay for a period of time, but then we sort of discontinued it. So it was very much that sort of trial and error at the start of things we liked, and we thought, well, if we like them, other people might like them.
What are those other 2 products? I want to know what the other 2 products were.
And then we did. We did some glass dishes, some serving dishes. But the problem with glass dishes were it's very difficult to make a glass dish work better. So we really struggled with glass dishes. And then we also had some drinking mugs as well. But again, a mug's a mug, and we struggled to work out how to make those better. So they all went by the wayside, and we concentrated on just really functional products. And why we love the chopping board, because everybody uses one more than, 2, 3, 4 times a day. Everyone's got one or more, multiple of. So it's a big market. And we just thought, well, this is great. Why don't we just design stuff, work with products that people use every day? And that was and try and make them work better.
And how many goes does it take before you get something right? Because I remember having this conversation with James Dyson, and obviously, thousands of product designs later, you hit gold, having made incremental, tiny little changes and adaptations along the way to get you to this place of what you consider to be perfection. I mean, that journey, what does that look like? It must take a certain type of person to want to go on it.
Yeah, I guess we're constantly failing. I learned that actually from, the time I had at Dyson, working with James Dyson, was that, failure, persistence, well, you learn a huge amount through failure. And I think so we're constantly failing with products. But to give you an idea, we've probably developed over 300 different types of chopping boards over the years. And still developing chopping boards. And people are like, how do you manage to keep going on chopping boards? But there's always, we're constantly looking for problems to solve. But we launch between 70 to 100 new products a year, and we have a ratio when we start our design process, which typically takes about 2 years, from when we start that ideation, looking for the idea, to when we launch a product. On average, let's say it takes 2 years. We start with 100 ideas. We launch probably 4 to 5 of those ideas. So we have at the start, we need to make sure be very broad, open-minded, looking for lots of opportunities, looking at lots of different things, to then, through the development process and failure, whittle it right down to the best ideas that we then take forward.
And how do you do that? Do you just shove everybody in a room and just have these huge, great big brainstorming sessions? Is that how it works? No idea is a stupid idea.
Very much so. Very much so. It's sort of like, I think, we do get people in a room, we go out and we observe, we talk to people, but we basically try and get brilliantly creative, sort of disruptive people together and listen, isn't it? It's all about listening, really trying not to talk too much, because that's when you sort of, you're going to find the great ideas, or you're, particularly if you get the right people in the room. But we say, like, disruption and being different is really important. So in our design process, and we've developed this over time, but we sort of feel like, because we're designers, we're always trying to develop better products. But actually, what we're looking for is the different idea, the disruptive idea. And if you can marry that with a real problem that you're trying to solve, you generally will end up having a successful product to take forward. And so that's also the really fun bit.
Yeah. How easy is it to fall into gimmicking stuff? I mean, how easy is it to overthink a thing and to just overcomplicate? Because I think that thing about, keep it simple, stupid, is a good sort of motto to live by. Because there can be, can't there, a complete tendency to overcomplicate a thing.
Yeah, definitely. I think so. So at the trying to understand what is the problem you're trying to solve. That's the first thing. And is this really a problem? I think that the trap you fall into is maybe then you think it's a problem, but actually it isn't a problem at all. And then when you end up with a solution, you go to the market with it and to consumers, and they're like, yeah, what? I don't get it. Why have you done that? It doesn't make any sense. But if you are solving a real problem, you can identify that problem. Then when you come up with a solution, generally it doesn't have that gimmick. It functions really well and people get it. I mean, one of the best things you can hear, I think, when you launch a new product is when someone says, why didn't someone think of that before? If you hear that, you've got it right, because it immediately resonates with someone. They've looked at it and go, yeah, my God, that's it. That's exactly what we need. So that's our sort of approach. We're constantly searching for that. But it's identifying the problem. I think most of our energy goes into really trying to observe and look for how can we make a product work better? Is there an issue with the environment that the product is being used in? Is the function not working? How can we improve it? We spend a lot of time looking at that. Coming up with a solution is then probably a bit easier if you've honed in on that, really defined that problem.
And how much of it is gut instinct as well, and just knowing that you're onto something? Because I wonder whether also you've got a big journey. It's sort of a 2-year development, like you say, from ideation to actual reality on customers' shelves. I mean, that is a long old stint of time. And in that time, other products can come out, in that journey time that might trump the thing that you were trying to get on top of.
Yes,
I mean, how do you sort of maintain the confidence in a hunch that then ends up being consumer tested at a latter part of that journey?
I guess there's a bit of experience. You have the process you go through, and so you're constantly trying to refine the process, because the process, let's say the development process, helps us go through various steps along the way and checkpoints to make sure that, are we still on track? Is this thing still delivering what it needs to do? And then as you go through and you start to prototype and test those prototypes, is it, made out of the right materials? Is it made in the right way? Is it going to have a long usable life? So you go through the process, and during that process, lots of opportunity for us to say, no, stop. We need to go back, or we need to go in a different direction, or this isn't really working, etc. And I think then we rely on the team to help us do that. We've got some really clever sort of creative people who are brilliant at working all that sort of stuff out. We will engage with consumers occasionally, but usually that might be quite far down the line. That's usually about when we're actually talking about the product and how we try and communicate it. We need help. Do you understand what we're trying to do, and how are we communicating it in the right way? We'll generally engage with consumers at that point. But we rely a lot on ourselves and up until that point. And so then also, sometimes you get it wrong. And like I said, failure is part of the journey, and we do fail, but we just try and learn. We fail fast, we move on, and we learn from it.
And in terms of both of you, you're both product designers. That's your background, both in design, and you both sort of trod different sort of pathways to get there and then came back together again. When you're now running a really decent business and you've got all the pressures that come with that as a CEO, do you miss out on the bits that got you there? Those moments that are sort of those lovely little gems or nuggets that happen where you go, oh, we're onto something, and you're really in the thick of it. Because as a CEO, you've got this sort of broad overview piece now, haven't you? So do you still get stuck in? Are you still able to do that? Do you miss it if you don't?
So I'm still able to get stuck in, probably much to the annoyance of maybe Anthony, who, step on his toes a bit. So I think a big thing for us and a big thing for me as well is focus. So, and we remember that actually what got us to where we are today is the product, really. I mean, okay, we have a fantastic team, and of course the team has driven the growth and everything else, but ultimately when it boils down, if we focus, it's all about the product. And so we are constantly reminding ourselves of that. And I carve out as much time as I can to spend with the design teams and development teams on product and product development. It's the bit we love, but it's also, we know that if we get that right, and it's not easy, but if we get it right, the business will flourish on the back of it. So I still carve out lots of time for that, as well as trying to then manage the other parts of the business. And for me, I think, one of my strengths is product and helping Anthony and working closely with Anthony on the product development side. Then in the other areas, all the senior leadership team are superb. This great A team who are superb at what they do. And I sort of then will hopefully support, encourage, challenge those guys, but they then leave them to it to get on with, running their parts of the business. I'd much rather sit in a product development meeting and discuss what we're launching next year and get excited about that than I probably would talking about our warehouse strategy. But I have to do both. And the guy running our warehouses is superb. So, thankfully he gets excited about that and I don't have to, but that's all part of it.
And what about the challenges of the world in which we're living now? I mean, I suspect COVID for you would have been an interesting time because everybody was based at home and everybody was obsessed with keeping and staying hygienic and clean.
Yeah, I mean, COVID was, it turned the business upside down. I mean, initially back in 2020, when it all started off, the business literally stopped dead. And it was a very sort of terrifying time because no one really knew what was going on. We went into the first lockdown, and it sort of, everything in our world stopped. It then picked up quite quickly because everyone was stuck at home. And so they were all using homeware products and our sales sort of recovered quite quickly. And we then went through a period of 18 months where we had very huge disruption to our supply chain. So factories that make our products were all closed or opening and closing. We weren't able to travel to see anybody. And yet we had a certain amount of demand because people were home baking and, looking after their homes and organizing their homes and all the rest of it. We had that for 18 months and then everyone stopped baking and sort of went on holiday again. And so in our world, it's sort of the market changed very rapidly. Retail stores started to open again and we had the shift from online back into retail. And then since then, we've had obviously the war in Ukraine, which sent energy prices through the roof. We had cost of living crisis, which impacted consumer demand, et cetera, et cetera. So we've been on a roller coaster over the last 4 years. And I think what's been really fascinating, particularly from when you're running a business is staying flexible, adaptable, trying to deal with these issues that you're dealing with, some of them for the first time, and having a senior leadership team that are flexible, can adapt quick, and at the same time look for opportunities because there are opportunities. So we've been very focused on, look, we've got this set of circumstances we have to deal with, but let's go out and try and find the opportunities where we can drive the business forward. We need to adapt where the market's adapting or our consumers are changing the way that they shop. We need to adapt. So it's been a very hectic, roller coaster of 4 years. But and we've ended up with quite a different business at the other side. The product has stayed, and our approach to product has stayed core and very much the same. But where our consumers shop, how they shop, where our team work and how they work, has all changed out of all recognition. So it's been fascinating.
So be more specific about that. So how has it fundamentally changed? So life pre-COVID and then everything that's happened since, and not just COVID, like you say, the cost of living crisis, the Ukrainian war, all of those different aspects of modern life that sort of have permeated everyone's lives. How has that fundamentally changed all those things you've just mentioned?